So one of the best things that we want to do is help you save time, reduce frustration, and one of the major ways is just when you start searching for a home, if you are ready, if you're actually starting to search, if you start submitting a lot of inquiries through different websites, you're going to get contacted by a lot of people. So it's no different than if you went to 5 different car dealerships shopping for that Honda Pilot. You're going to have potentially 5 different salespeople chasing you down. And so we want to reduce the crazy for you. We want you to stay in focus and just have an awareness that if you do start submitting inquiries, that's how these sites work. So Zillow, Redfin, all of these places, if you have information that you need about a particular listing and you do want that, to know what those final details are, just reach out to us. We'll get it for you. You do not have to be in 20 different thousand places online, because the reality is they all have access to the same information, which is the multiple listing service. So one of the most important things when you're shopping for a house or thinking about doing it is understanding the difference between the price of the house and the value. So not every house has the right price. Sometimes the price is too high, sometimes it's perfect, and sometimes it's too low. And so a lot of the times that house that's priced at $350 should be priced at $400, which makes it a good deal. Not everybody realizes that. And so a lot of the times there is room to actually negotiate on a house and actually bid a little bit higher. You always want to be really aware of what the actual value of the place is, because that's going to either represent opportunity or a potential mistake in a purchase. Meaning if the house is priced at $400 and it's really worth $350, you do not want to be buying the house for $400 to $450 unless it is the perfect house for you and you're going to stay there forever. So everybody forgets about really focusing on the most important thing is what is the value of the home. The price is just what the price was set at. So what we do on our team as agents is when you see a house, or when anybody sees a house that's $400,000, we want to know, is it priced good? Is it priced high? Is it priced low? That is the most important thing to do. And the way that we accomplish that is to evaluate each property of potential purchase and see if it's an opportunity. Is it underpriced? Is it priced in the middle? Is it overpriced? When it is overpriced, you have to be very careful. Typically, those are going to be the homes that you see that sit on the market for a while. That seller was very aspirational. They thought their house was worth more. Hopefully you'd think everybody realizes and recognizes that, but that's not always the case. So we want everybody to be smart with the purchase and know 100% what they're dealing with when they're buying a property. The chances are, if you're shopping for a house already, you understand what Zillow.com is, and you might know what Redfin.com is. I want to tell you all about those sites. It's really important that you know about the things that I'm going to lay out in this video. These are the pros and also the cons. So I'm not going to lie, Zillow's a really great site. It has the consumer experience down pretty pat. You can search far and wide. You can search in different cities. And for right now, you have access to everything. It's connected to the Realtor multiple listing service. So I don't have a bad thing to say about the experience. The app is also good. And Redfin is kind of the same. Even better experience, actually, as far as the interface. So no complaints there. They've invested a ton of money in making their website and their app really great. However, there's some really clear downfalls that you need to be aware of. So downfall number 1, and you can search on their site for as long as you want. That's really great, right? You could start a year early, 2 years early. You can browse on there and nobody bothers you. But the second you click an inquiry, and you may do it incidentally, then what is going to happen is you are going to have realtors following up with you, and some are pretty relentless. So you could get on a realtor's list, in essence, as a home buyer, and they may text you, they may call you, there may be more than one agent that contacts you. Your phone might blow up a little bit. So if you're at that stage where you were shopping and you actually wanted somebody's help, that's great. But a lot of times when you're not, it is going to open up the floodgates, so to speak, of people reaching out to you, and you may not be ready for that. So that's con number 1. Second thing, they're only as good as their data, and they both use different algorithms, and it's not always correct. And this can impact you as a buyer. And the reason is because If Zillow thinks the house or Redfin says the house is worth a certain amount, that's what everybody feels like it's worth. And it's not always true. It can be very far from the truth. Let me give you an example. When you're shopping for a house, it's extremely important that you understand that there are companies, there are websites that produce online valuations. And these online valuations are not always correct. In fact, I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. And it's important to understand this because if you're going to make offers on property, it is really important to understand what the property is actually worth, not what a website thinks the property is worth. Oftentimes, sellers price their property in accordance with some of these actual algorithms, and I'm going to show you some major differences in their potential estimates. All right. So this property here, Redfin thinks is worth $576,542. That's what its algorithm is pushing upon the website. All right. So if you go to Zillow on the same exact property in this moment in time, Zillow thinks the property is worth $665,715. So what's the issue with that? Well, it's almost $100,000 difference, right? So depending on which site you are using, which site you're relying on to think that the value is correct, is obviously not. These two systems are not agreeing with the potential value of this one individual property in this moment in time. So if you were to make an offer, if this property were to be listed, wouldn't you want to know what it was really worth? So another example, same situation, different property, slightly less money value-wise. Zillow thinks the property is worth $423,000. And Redfin thinks the property's worth $388,000. Still a large percentage of a gap in difference. And you want to know what's actually right. So the only way to do that is to get an opinion from a certified appraiser or an agent that really understands that particular location, that is going to spend the time to do a proper analysis and look up the recent sales in the property. So there's a lot of reasons why this can happen. So Redfin's algorithm favors multiple listing service data. Zillow's favors more of tax records. So the algorithms are a little bit different. So when they don't agree with each other, you don't know what it is, the value is, and you're going to go make an offer on a property. It could be falsely high, it could be falsely low. If it's falsely low, that's a good thing. If it's falsely high, the perception is that the house is worth way more than it really is, and that's a problem. So the reason why this happens, think about it. There's houses that are next to new construction communities that were built in 1950. There's homes that are next to water but not on water. And there's all kinds of scenarios. There could be a cell phone tower right in the backyard. That could be affecting the value of the house that the algorithms can't pick up on. It could be numerous things. I've seen properties that were 2 blocks from a golf course being valued as such that they're on the golf course. And so there's just a lot of little things that it can't pick up on, quite frankly. Another really big negative is that there's no way of knowing any of the disclosures for a certain property. So in a real estate listing, we can look up disclosures. So we can see if there's ever been a problem at the property. And these things just aren't, they don't fit within the ecosystem of the website of Zillow or Redfin. This is purely just so you can get access to listings. But when you're serious about buying a house, you do want to know what problems that they may have had in the past. Are there issues with the title? You know, simple things. Is it maybe owned by a bank and that bank is going to sell it on an auction website in which you have to pay a 5% fee just for the right to buy the house? These things aren't on those platforms. So you have no idea what the situation is behind the scenes with the property as you would on a real estate listing. So since the search experience is good, what I always recommend when you are serious about buying a home is that you have actual MLS, multiple listing service real estate data to back up your search on like a Redfin or a Zillow. So if you want to search, you want to use their consumer experience, the mapping, it is great, the app, everything is totally awesome, but you want to back that up with getting information about that particular property, 123 Main Street, from a real estate agent, because they're going to be able to pull the disclosures to the property and quite frankly save you a lot of time in a property that you may be interested in. If it has some issues, you're going to want to know about it, and that's the best way of doing it, is to have both of those running in the background or just stick with a standard MLS search like the one that most real estate agents have access to. So I have clients reach out to me all the time. They'll send me a listing from, say, Zillow. I'll check it out and I'll compare the value of what that property is actually worth with the Zestimate, or on Redfin with their estimate. And quite frankly, a lot of the times it's completely inaccurate. And so as a buyer, you need that information because, like I said, if it's underpriced, you need to know that. If you were to make bids, you can go more aggressive. If it's overpriced, wouldn't you want to know that too? Because you're already starting with a price that's high in a market where people are bidding on houses. So really important information. Zillow, Redfin, great websites, very consumer friendly. But when you get serious, it's not the end all be all. It's not all the data you have access to. It's definitely not what you want to use to base your decisions off of. Keep in mind, if you're looking on Zillow, one of the things that's going to be missing is on the multiple listing service, we can see exactly where the bedrooms are, where the utility space is, where the offices are, and we can see on what floor of the house. So if it's a house that has a 2-story layout, we can see, is that master, is it up on the 2nd story or is it down on the main floor? Because oftentimes you're searching for a house and you need a bedroom down. Sometimes you even need a bedroom and a full bath, right? So those things are omitted. They don't have the ability on the website to share that with you, and that can be critically important in your search. One of the things people worry about all the time when they're going to buy a house is they think they have to pay for the real estate agent. And when you're selling a home, totally different. When you're buying a home, usually not the case. So typically the seller is going to factor into their costs the compensation for the real estate agent. And so it's an important thing for you to know. So if you're thinking of buying, do not delay your purchase if you're worried about costs for the real estate agent, because there probably is going to be none. So today's market is super competitive. One of the easiest ways to get an advantage is to take a closer look at the house and all the mechanicals and these things before you purchase the home, so that you have the potential to not have a traditional inspection doing that before the purchase is made. So let's talk about inspections and inspectors just a tiny bit as it relates to some hacks and secrets and something that can kind of put you at an advantage. So the pre-inspection is a process that you can go through when you're looking at the property before they're going to review offers, where you can see if you need to use a traditional inspection contingency. And if you do not, because you've looked at it in advance, that's going to give you a massive advantage, because to a seller, when you are able to waive an inspection up front, your offer is going to look a million times better. So let's also talk real quick about the quality of home inspectors. So we've been doing real estate for a long time, and I can honestly say not every home inspector is the same. They're just like real estate agents, and it's not really hard to get an inspector's license. And so what that means is you've got a lot of people out there providing the same service at different levels of quality. And what I mean by that is it could just be something as simple as, do they have the right latest equipment as far as technology goes? Do they have infrared? Can they tell what's going on with temperature behind walls and things like that? Same thing as realtors, drastically different level of skill. So if you need some guidance in that, feel free to reach out to us. Not all inspectors are the same. Pre-inspections can be a good thing for you. So people are always confused on closing costs. What's a closing cost when you buy a house? Why do you have it? And how does it impact your negotiations, and what can you expect to pay? It's essentially a fee. So in this video, I'm going to explain all of those things, and I'm going to do it right now. So people ask all the time what closing costs are. Quite simply, they are literally just the cost associated with you getting the mortgage, plain and simple. So just like anything else, what you pay to attain that mortgage can be a little bit different from company to company. So let's talk a little bit about what to expect, and I'm going to keep it really high level. If you're looking at a property that's $500,000, we'll just pick a number, between 2 and 3% is what we typically see. Sometimes a little bit less, not very often though. So if you are buying a $500,000 home, expect to pay a chunk. Expect to pay at least $10,000 potentially in closing costs. Now, when you go up in that 500 to plus range, you don't start to see that percentage kind of stick around. What I mean by that is if you have an $800,000 house, you are not going to be paying like $16,000 typically, and closing costs is a little bit of a sliding scale there. If you are looking under 500, if you're looking at about say 300,000, a lot of the times we'll see those closing costs be between 7 and 8,000. Now, don't worry too much about it. I'm also going to explain to you how you can get this covered and go from there. So there's a couple different ways we can get creative and this can get covered for you. Easiest way is in negotiations. The seller can contribute to those fees for you up front, and we see that a lot. In this market, it's becoming increasingly difficult to win a bid where you are asking for the seller to cover your fees. Typically what we end up doing is bumping the price a little bit to offset that. So that's one way, that's the most common way. And there are several others that we can explain, but we're not gonna go into it in this video. It's gonna take a lengthy explanation. You can reach out to us about that separately. So the best thing to do, if you are thinking of buying a property and you are curious of what this looks like for you, you're gonna wanna reach out to a lender and just get an idea of what this number is for you. It can change a little bit dependent upon credit. If credit is very low, those fees could be a tiny bit higher. So it is good for you to reach out to a reputable lender and just get the ball rolling and figure it out. It's gonna come into play in your negotiations. You might as well know what it is up front.